I don't touch boards anymore. Wow.
Remember that synth you had?
Who the fuck is that me playing?
Yeah. Yeah, you had a keyboard in the studio. You had a keyboard in the studio and that's your sound.
Listen to this voice.
Like the sound of silence calling, I hear your voice.
The first album did so astronomically well, and I was not expecting a huge amount. I didn't know what to expect because I did not come from the world you came from. You know, we made the first album as if nobody was waiting for it, because they weren't. There's no hype, there was no hit single that we had to live up to a whole album. With Closer, we went in, you know, feeling like we had wind behind us, but I think also a certain pressure that wasn't there, for me at least, on the first album, because we had a bar to match.
There was expectation, of course, but not in a worrying way to me, because I knew how well you sang. When the second album came along, as always happens with great artists, they have a say. And it's annoying to a producer when the artist does finally get a say. So Josh had a lot more input. He became more of himself. He became more involved. He had more of a voice because now he's successful.
I remember thinking to myself, it's okay to own this now. I didn't feel comfortable owning it on my first album.
You didn't feel like you deserved it?
No, I didn't. No, yeah, it was a deserving thing. It was also kind of like artistically, I made the first album very confused about whether or not the things I was doing were right for me, would be bought by people, not like, you know, money bought, but like just artistically people would buy it from me. And so with the second album, I kind of like, I wore the hat a little more, like inside. I was like, okay, I know this now. This is what I can do. Let's lean into it. It was like a feeling of like, okay, that first album was very much like, what slot does Josh fit into the music business right now, where we have a great path for his voice, but then also as like a 17, 18-year-old coming into the business and saying like, well, how do I make my mark where I can find a niche for myself that is personal? You were really great at saying, hey Josh, look, you can branch off in these ways. You can go do a little bit of writing.
But you gotta come home.
Test that and keep coming home, and we'll figure out like where those lines are, and let's widen without alienating, and let's find ways to kind of like find a little more of you in this music. All this to say that on the Closer album, I feel like we found a really great sweet spot of those two things.
This is the first day of filming Josh's second album. What?
Is your finger over the lens?
Oh, is it?
We wanted on Closer to really solidify what like crossover meant to us. When we talked about like blending genres, we wanted to take that seriously, and we wanted to really take the best from each of the things that we were blending with and create unique sounds, stuff that really utilized the orchestra, but utilized our pop influences and our electronic influences, and do it in a really smart way.
You have to close your eyes. There is room for love again.
Closer was an album that like also came from so many incredible ideas and people coming in and out of the studio, like Oceano, for instance, Leo Z. Leo was one of those writers that wrote songs that were interesting. Oceano, Mai, Alla Luce del Sole. These are melodies that surprised the listener in ways that they didn't know they wanted, and that was always something that I tried to strive for. And then you would bring it to life.
Why don't we talk a little bit about some of the songs on Closer? Let's take a song like She's Out of My Life, which was, I believe, a song that I talked you into singing.
Probably.
I just love the lyric of this song.
I loved when you proved me wrong, by the way. My favorite moments were when you'd say, we're doing this, I made a demo, get your ass in there, and I'd sing it, and I'd be like, oh my God.
But I wasn't always right, of course.
9 times out of 10 you were.
There's something about that song that moved me, and I believe that you could move the audience with that song too.
She's out of my life.
That was the amazing thing about spending day after day with David, because coming into the studio, oftentimes we didn't have an agenda. Like I'd come in and we'd have a couple of things.
Great.
Yeah, we had things we wanted to finish. You know, we had like a list of things we could possibly work on. This was a chart maker in Malibu. We'd sit and we'd, you know, have like Diet Coke and some potato chips, and we would talk about like, what have you been listening to today? Like what's a, you know, oh, did you hear that song on the radio? Did you hear, hey, how about this song? You know, and David's right. He'd sit down at the piano and you would channel, and something would come out, and that question of how do you make it unique when it's a song that everybody's heard a million times, that's David's gift of being able to find a way to both honor the original and add something fresh to it. And as a vocalist, being next to David, that was something that I always tried to give him and give the song as a singer, is to honor what made it so great and not wanting to deconstruct too much, but then also wanting to like add something that is different. And I think we did that with She's Out of My Life. We really made it
I agree.
different.
I was so cavalier, now the way that it stands, she's out of my head.
You know, I wanted to talk to you about the song Mi Mon Caray.
Yeah.
The great Joshua Bell. He makes no mistakes that I can hear.
He's just got an incredible tone, and he's got an incredible exploration, like his spirit for breaking through boundaries and to expanding what the violin can mean to wide audiences. Gail on the harp.
Gail Levant.
Vocal duets are a lot of fun. Instrumental duets are really pose a different challenge and pose a really special environment when you can get it right. It just dances on the strings.
Yeah. That leads me to Jeremy Levitt,
Jeremy Levitt.
who arranged Mi Mon Caray.
Yep.
And wrote out Joshua's part.
That's right.
And it was just brilliant.
You can always tell when somebody's arranging from like their imagination to the pencil to the page, where the sky is the limit. And Jeremy was one of those guys that could just think it and write it out. The lines that he wrote for Mi Mon Caray are up there with some of the great contemporary classical pieces out there. Jeremy wrote every one of those notes. Every one of those notes. None of that was improvised.
And the classic Jeremy line, I don't know if it was on that song, but at some point in the studio with him, you and I. And I went, he was out there conducting, I went, Jeremy, bar 24, there's a terrible rub between the violins and the violas, like, you know, and he goes, I know, dear boy, isn't it lovely? And he would not change it.
Isn't it lovely?
He wouldn't change it, no.
When he hit it, man, it was very, very special.
Well, you hit it on Mi Mon Caray, and I think him and Joshua, and I think I played piano on it, and you sang, of course. It was a magic session.
I've always kind of said that my voice was good on sad songs.
You're a depressing kid.
Finally, I got to lean into my sadness, my deep, dark sadness on Broken Vow.
Could you have cut the intro in half, please?
You know, I could tell a story during this intro.
You read a book. Why? Why would I do that?
This song came about from like a real heartbreak story, right?
Well, yes.
Not the best wedding song, by the way.
Have you ever had your heart broken like that?
Of course, absolutely. I talk about it all the time where, like, you know, some of these earlier records, Closer not as much, but the first one for sure, you know, I'm singing songs that I hadn't lived through yet.
Right, you didn't.
know, I hadn't lived through the things that I was singing about.
I fell in love with the song when I heard it.
Yeah.
I fell in love with the lyric.
It's beautiful. And we reversed the he and her to change
that's
it.
Right.
Yeah.
But also Walter Afanassieff, who is the writer, along with Laura, I guess.
With Laura, they wrote it together.
She wrote the lyric, right?
Yeah.
The lyric is so compelling. I want to know who you're laying with when I'm alone.
Right.
Jesus.
It's got that Bonnie Raitt, I Can't Make You Love Me kind of like essence to it. That melancholy, that regret, the sadness.
Yeah.
Do I keep on asking why I let you go now?
Yeah, I love when the sad songs are this beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I want to know who you're laying with when I'm alone.
Yeah.
Just crushes me. It's one of my favorite songs ever.
More than a broken vow.
Shall we talk about the big song from Closer?
Oh, yes. So You Raised Me Up, prior to us recording it, had been a song by the great band Secret Garden.
Mm-hmm.
It was a half Irish, half Norwegian band. And
I thought they were from San Francisco, but
I think that's Savage Garden.
Oh, yeah,
sure.
thank you.
Right, you got it. And I'd heard it in a taxi cab, promoting the first album. Didn't think anything else about it except I just knew it was a beautiful song. I didn't really register it, and I just put it in the back of my mind. You had gotten it prior from Roma Downey, but I was in the studio when Frank came in with it and brought it on a CD and said, hey, listen to the song. And I had that aha moment of like, oh, I've heard that song before. That's the song I heard in Ireland years ago.
But I was determined to cut the song that night.
I know.
And we did.
But that would happen with us on Closer.
Right.
A song would come in, and because you're so fast, we had
a track by that night. By midnight, we had a track.
It was always frustrating for me as a singer because you always want to get a song in your voice and in your bones before you want to rehearse.
Yeah.
You were always, I had to
just sing the song.
I had
just
to
sing
sometimes
the song.
ride your enthusiasm and get in there. But that was a song we knew was special. We didn't necessarily know at that point, or I didn't, that it would be the single.
Well, you not only have a great career, but you're in very rare air, and I've said this before to you on stage, in that you have a career song. And so many artists they have a career, but they don't have a career song.
Well, you talk about the soundtrack to people's lives. You talk about like when you make a song and you don't realize sometimes when you make it how it's going to affect people. And there's nothing like going out in front of an audience and being reminded night after night after night of the importance of a song like that to people.
I think Jorge is something he wants to play us.
Right? Oh yeah?
What did you find, Jorge?
I don't know who might remember this, but last minute this song was edited. It's an extra verse. Let me play it for you.
Okay, here it comes.
And I recorded it?
Right before the end.
Stormy seas, I am strong when I am on your shore.
Before the big part.
You raise me up to more than I can.
I do remember this. So this is where we have the big key change,
Yes,
right?
I do remember this. No wonder it was edited.
No life without its hunger. Each restless heart.
That's pretty though.
So
That's pretty.
But not needed.
But when you come and I am filled with wonder, sometimes I think I glimpse eternity.
So then what does it do? It goes to the
Now
thing
the key
here.
change.
You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up.
That's what he'd do. He'd do the hands would go up.
but
You'd do
that
the Nixon.
lick, the choir came up
Pretty.
with that lick, not
Who
me.
played the guitar? Who played that guitar on that? Was that Dean?
Michael Thompson,
Or
probably.
Michael?
Michael
Yeah.
Thompson. Wow.
God. It's probably a good edit.
It was.
Probably a good edit.
Yeah. Amazing, huh? Good find, Jorge.
And also, thinking back, I was 18. I probably giggled at "When You Come, I'm Filled with Wonder." I probably thought to myself, I can't sing that with a straight face. Let's be honest.
That's hilarious.
Wash away the thoughts inside.
Closer really represented, when we knew what our groove was. And sonically, when I'd step into that booth, I knew that when I put the headphones on, I would be in a world where I could play in that playground. And that's a fun feeling.
Yeah.
No more love, no more pride.
I will simply say this, Josh. You've been such a great addition to my life, right from the beginning. And I think Closer is a brilliant album. And I wouldn't say because of me, I would say because of you. You really came into yourself. And it was such a pleasure. And the fact that we could sit here 20 years later and still be friends and all that you've accomplished is, I'm proud of you on many levels. I really mean that. I could have not have known that you would have all this talent and this all that you've done in your life. But Closer was a great moment for me.
Me too. David, the feeling is so mutual. The lessons that I have learned from making this music with you, I said it before, even if I hadn't sold any records, to be able to have the opportunity to sit and watch you do what you do and to be able to have learned as a vocalist, as an artist, from what you taught and what you continue to teach, carries me through any situation that I put myself in artistically, I take from the time that we spent together. And to feel that is an amazing thing all these years later to talk about it.
I'd just add that if you hadn't sold any records, you wouldn't be as happy as you are today.
We certainly wouldn't be sitting here.
No, you wouldn't be happy.
Anyway, continued success, my friend. I look forward to coming one night to see you on Broadway.
And vice versa. I can't wait to see Betty Boop. And
we go.
and always in your corner, and always great to go back and listen to some of our finest.
That's Josh Groban, and this is Closer.
Or as the sticker at some retailers put over the C, loser.